So really cool to be here. Thanks for reaching out and inviting me to come. So often we do like presentation after presentation on cyclist rights, and just like a crash course on what to do if you're involved in a crash. And that can be a bit of it's fun, but it's a bit of a downer, sometimes. Engaging with cyclists, not a downer. Telling them what happens if they get clipped by a SUV, bit of a downer. So it's nice to be here to chat about sort of the work we do, and I'll give it a real positive spin to make us look good, and that'll be fun to talk about. I don't have a real plan because like we don't have a presentation where we talk about ourselves and what we do, but I'm going to do that as best I can. Talk about what we do individually for clients, but then more importantly, what is our broader thinking and approach to the work that we do. All good. Totally. Pack them in. We got more over here. Yeah. So that's if you want to interject at all, if that's allowed, I'm sure it is. Everybody seems pretty chill. Please do. I honestly find presentations, the best part of it is our interaction, engagement with each other and sharing our experiences, like whether we want to talk bike stuff or police violence. Both, that's a downer too, but we can talk about like ways to combat that, and just like general advocacy and things like that. I'm happy to discuss anything that piques your fancy, or if we want to like share ideas and thoughts on best practices, we can do that too. Yeah, my name's Dave. Before starting all this, I don't know, I'm from Guelph, Ontario. I worked overseas for several years in like post-conflict countries in West Africa, thinking that a law degree would be a great way to change things, and affect radical reforms. Then I went to law school and was shouldered with, I'm sure many people who are at UT can relate, thousands of dollars in debt. And then I ended up working for an insurance company to pay for that debt. Wasn't in Congo, was in Toronto working for Desjardins, so that was a bit of a bummer. But I started like biking to work as a way to like feel good in the morning and then de-stress, having like sat through an 8-hour discussion on a rear end car collision on the way home, that was bad. And then in doing that, this is like Toronto 2013, 2015, I would like come to intersections like Adelaide and University, and there would just be like construction and cars and cyclists everywhere. And I'm like, this is wild. There's something here. And every day I would come into work having been like cut off by a dump truck or just super hot about it. And then, the odd person I would get as a client, and then sort of went down the rabbit hole of like, okay, like I'm out here getting clipped almost every day. What are my rights, and like what were to happen? And so like I said, went down the rabbit hole and fell into this area of law that like hit on some of my passions, and sort of took what I was doing overseas, following passion, and found it locally in my community, and then just started building from there. So that was like 2015. Kind of built through at 2 different firms into 2017, 2018. Was almost killed, and so then decided to sort of make some serious changes and follow my dream of starting my own firm, practicing areas of law that really spoke to me, because that's the only thing that would get me up in the morning, is doing things I was passionate about. So I sue dangerous drivers, I sue police, and I sue people who perpetrate sexual assault. That has grown into a firm, unfortunately, that's rapidly expanding. People always ask how business is, and I say, unfortunately, good. And that's because it's really tough out there. for many people, not just cyclists. So yeah, we've expanded to Hamilton. We're moving into a bigger space in Toronto. We've got like a cycling law hub in Ottawa, but we represent people from Owen Sound to Ottawa, Windsor to Thunder Bay, cyclists, and other folks who've been injured. We're personal injury lawyers. Yay. That is like what we are. And so on an individual level, we help people get compensation and support after they've been in a crash or they've been assaulted. And like for me, that's like almost that's one of the most important things like I feel I can do, because in our capitalist society, money rules everything, and like to recover you need money. So I get to play a role in helping get that money for the person, and we're pretty good at it. Yeah, we help them get compensation, we help them get supports, and we help them navigate complex legal systems and insurance schemes. One thing we do that's maybe a bit different is we'll help victims in a criminal proceeding. I'll like prep them. I had a cyclist who was really hit pretty badly in Burlington, and there were like trials against drivers almost never happen. There's like a plea deal or something. It's City of Toronto prosecutors seems to drop every one of my cases against injured cyclists, but one actually went to trial. So I like hired a crim law buddy to like put my client through the ringer. So we do like different things that maybe are a bit outside the box, just to help our clients. But like it was one of my first like anti-Black racism human rights cases. Then I was helping a friend, and we were just like, because you sit in a mediation all day, we were just chatting, and I was like talking about this work that we do, and they were very active in Black liberation circles, and said, you can't just do this work and profit off misery. You can't get paid off of blood money and that's it. So a big focus of what we do is like systemic change and community support whenever we can, wherever it makes sense. And that's kind of more what I want to talk about today, is kind of the broader things that we do to push for change and like to make it so that we don't need a stupid biking lawyer anymore. Like we should not need lawyers that specialize in helping cyclists because we're getting clipped in such numbers that it's required. Like it's unacceptable. So we devote a ton of our time, effort, and resources to that change, and it takes a lot of forms. I don't know if people are familiar with us online, but one of the forms that it seems to like most often take is a fair amount of shame game. I say that like with a bit of jest, like we point out dangerous situations or dangerous road areas, be it construction sites or what have you, and point to those things to our elected officials who are responsible for them, or construction companies, and be like, this is going to hurt somebody and you need to change it. Or this has hurt somebody and we can't do these things going forward. And so that's like something that we've found is really effective, actually, in getting changes. We know that we've played a small role along with 1,000 other advocates, and Ingrid, who is happy to see me, is definitely a friend and a fellow cheerleader, because she's doing great work too. But we all sort of work together, and we use our techniques to push for this positive change. Trying to think, we oftentimes we'll hear from cyclists who've been involved in serious crashes, or even like more overt road violence, where a driver purposely used their motor vehicle to run them off the road, maybe like a flip of the bird kind of situation. And this like happens all the time, escalated very quickly. And then someone was seriously injured, or an assault took place, right? And so often we find in either serious crashes or road assaults that the police like do not press charges. or do not investigate properly. And so we actively, like, I either reach out to the police, like I'll just pick up the phone and say, I need to speak to someone about this, or we use media and social media to say, hey, you need to act on this. And time again, we've seen real results in that. Someone will come to us and be like, well, I told the police what happened to me, and they didn't really say they want to do anything. And so we like put a bit of pressure on, and it gets things done, and has resulted in charges. I'd pull my social media up and show you some examples of that, but like I got two right now. One, we're dealing with it more privately. It's like an interaction, I think, that shouldn't have happened between police and a community member. And so we're just dealing with that privately. You know, we'll talk to them and see if we can get a result that way. But I've got another one where I have on video a driver popping his door open, almost clipping the cyclist. And then there was like an exchange that shouldn't happen between them. But then I have the other video of the motorist chasing on foot after this cyclist and like tackling them and hitting them. And this was reported to police, and they haven't done anything. So we're going to show them the video, and depending on the format that we want to use, either public or private, and pretty much demand that something is done, because that's unacceptable behavior. Come on in. There's chairs everywhere. Yeah. So we do those individual cases. When we see a broader pattern, we'll do a fair amount of letter writing. For a while, and I'm not picking on Toronto Police, but I'm picking on Toronto Police. They just give me such good stuff to work with for a presentation like this. So for so long, they were not classifying doorings as motor vehicle collisions. And so they would not give the injured cyclist who was doored the driver's insurance information, which they're required to do. They said, well, a dooring isn't defined as a collision under the under the Highway Traffic Act. Well, nothing is defined as a collision under the Highway Traffic Act, guys. So but they got the law wrong, and we used case after case and then legislation to get them to change their ways and do an about face and do training on that. Hey, officers in the field, if this happens, you got to give the insurance information. I mean, if Allstate considers it a collision and they're doing better than you, you've got to ask yourself some questions. Yeah, so we've pushed for change on doorings. We got in a big fight with them last year about collisions, like swerving into somebody, and you dodged out of the way and hurt yourself, but you just didn't want to get run over. And they're saying, well, that's not a collision either. So we don't have to give you insurance information. It's kind of like, so what, you have to hit on purpose then to be able to access these benefits? Anyway, so we pushed on that as well. And they caved in. That's a lot of our road safety work. On our police accountability work, we just try and provide as much information to the public as possible. We use our social media presence to share information. Like April 1st, the legislation around policing in Ontario changed for the first time in a long time. And the former complaints, you can file a complaint against police, and that former division has changed now. There's been rule changes and things like that. So we put out information on that. When it's appropriate for our clients' cases, strategically and like just like compassionately, because you don't want to put people on the news when they've suffered some serious trauma, which is often the case in a policing incident, or of excessive force. But when appropriate, we with consent use our clients' situations or interactions with police to advocate for the ongoing discussions around budget decreases, defunding, as it were, and ultimately abolition. We take a lot of our cues from Black and Indigenous communities and leaders in the work that we do, and if we can, through our cases, contribute some small iota to those fights that they are leading. That's what we try and do all the time. Yeah, we gave them shit about that last month. We also do a ton of know your rights workshops, as I was mentioning before. So we go around the province. Last Thursday, I was in Kitchener-Waterloo. June, I'll be in Ottawa. And then in between, we'll do the Cycle Newmarket likes to get me out there. So we go out there a fair bit. So we'll probably go out there into Hamilton too. The idea with the Know Your Rights is just to like empower cyclists with the knowledge, not just like for what to do if you're in a crash, but to help others. I always like remember one crash right up here. What's Harvard, right? In St. George. I saw a cyclist go down in front of me, and like obviously hurt their knee. And so, it was me and a couple other people. Someone like was checking on them and they couldn't move off the road. So I flipped my bike and diverted traffic around them. And it's just like equipping, our fellow cyclists with sort of information to help on scene. Because like, I can't tell you how many times a pedestrian or another cyclist has got a license plate of a fleeing vehicle that has like just been a game changer. What you can do for others, if properly informed on what kind of tools you need is huge. So that's been something that we do a lot. Yeah, love that. And then it's just like talking with cyclists and chatting about their questions at the end. We invest a ton of time and funds into safety swag, safety gear that we think people can use to stay safe. We see police target cyclists, especially working cyclists, non-white working cyclists, for not having lights and things like that, especially in low-income communities. So we provide free lights to community hubs as well. I bike around with them on my bike and flip them off. We do what are called cyclist crash cards. And so this is like that rights presentation, but just in a card form. And it tells you the things you need. And on the one side, it's like QRs to an online report where you can enter the things you need, take a picture of the dummy's license plate who hit you, and it emails you on scene. So you have all that stuff, and it just prompts you through the shock to get the right things or things you can do for a down cyclist in front of you. And we send these like to every bike shop in Ontario, and I drove around to a lot of them to hand out personally. So we do a bunch of stuff like that. We partner all the time. I can't say how much we've learned, grown, and shared with our partners. We on the police stuff, we regularly meet with the Black Legal Action Center. We take their guidance on so many things. I just that piece I wrote last week, I've sent to them on the complaints. I've sent to them for their review. I said maybe we need to add some things here for people to be able to identify and collect evidence of anti-Black racism more than I have spoken about it in the article. So we try and do things like that. We've during COVID there was targeting sex workers for a variety of reasons. And so we worked with Maggie's to share information and rights awareness for folks. We partner with Saddle Sisters, which is a femme-identifying led group of cyclists in Toronto. We support They Cycle, which is meant to get non-binary riders out to bike races and on the podium. So we really like our like a lot of our work is with community and supporting folks that we believe in and that make our spaces incredible and better. Finally, like maybe the one thing I'm most proud of is maybe not the right way. One thing that inspires me every day is that like 3 days into the pandemic, first lockdown, like March 16th, we helped organize cyclists in a safe and UHN guided way, deliver food and supplies to folks in need by bicycle. And so we did that at the beginning of the pandemic, and we're called the Toronto Bike Brigade. And through that, delivering all through the pandemic, we learned like that food insecurity was like exacerbated by the pandemic, but existed obviously before, is whether and is I used exacerbated already, but we use that word again by other inequities. So we've continued on past the like pandemic proper, and we don't have the stats off the top of my head, but we just passed our 4-year anniversary. We deliver every single day of the week to multiple partners. I think we 800 volunteers, tens and tens of thousands of kilometers ridden every year, thousands of deliveries. This weekend I was biking for Spadina Fort York Community Care, delivering food to folks. It's really incredible if you ride a bike and you have some spare time and some capacity to give and help your community. Please check out the Bike Brigade. It's like all volunteer run. There's like a logistics team of 14 people who are incredible. We have a tech team that created this app, open source app. This is above my pay grade. That's why I talk about it and sound like an idiot. It's an app system that makes delivery like incredibly easy. I get the information on my phone. I hit a button and it texts the person, tells them how long I'm going to be till I get there. And it's really incredible stuff. Yeah, check out the Bike Brigade. I'm super stoked about that. Yeah, and I'm still a rider for them, and a board secretary, and then some of our profits from the firm we divert back to the work. Yeah, hopefully that wasn't random and all over the place, but it seems to be my life.